I don't know if you can hear it, but the sound of that stream is making me need the toilet, so I'll get a move on with this. Welcome everybody to a video sponsored by Luminar today, and I'm going to go through the winners of the competition, the editing competition that I announced a couple of weeks back. Very excited about that. Before I do that, today I also want to talk about storytelling within photography. Now this is something I've spoken a lot about before on this channel actually, and usually I've done so when talking about just one image at a time, and I've said that I think the best way to try and tell stories with photos is to try and make photos about things rather than just of things. And if your images get the viewers to ask questions such as, I wonder why, or I wonder where, or I wonder who, or I wonder when, all those kinds of questions, then I think your photo is well on the way to being a good story, because clearly it's invoking curiosity. However, that can still be quite a difficult thing to do, and there is a cheat when it comes to trying to tell stories with photos, and that cheat is basically to have like a set of 5 or 10 photos that all together tell the story. And that's what I thought I'd do today. Out with Emily, who you can see there, and I thought I'd document our walk in the Peak District on a lovely summer's day. I'll be honest, I don't think any Hollywood directors are going to be queuing up for the movie rights to this story, but I mean, it would have been cheating if I tried it in like the Himalayas or on the moon, for example. I think it's better that you demonstrate with a fairly mediocre thing. Not that a walk with my wife is anything other than spectacular. I'll shut up before I'm in trouble, or wet myself. Well, we'll get started with the storytelling in a minute, but first of all, I'm going to eat Emily's unbelievable flapjack. This is a one-way ticket to expensive dentistry. When were you last in one of my award-winning videos?
Was it Sri Lanka?
Might have been. Looking like that was over a year ago.
Yeah, I don't think you've done one with me since then.
I'm sure that river's antibacterial.
I think I need to do it for 30 seconds. Sing happy birthday twice.
And then you're good. I should also mention, in case you notice through the course of me filming this video, that I'm hobbling a little bit, and the reason for that, don't laugh. Yesterday I was barbecuing, doing a brilliant job of barbecuing, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I've seen a squirrel, it's fine.
Sorry, yeah.
And out of nowhere, the barbecue just spat out. Was it fat?
I think it was a fireball.
I think it was a bit of fat.
Comet.
That landed on my toe and just singed my toe, didn't it? And my shoe.
Yeah, it did. It melted your rubber shoe.
So my toe is in bits at the moment, and I'm hobbling along. I won't show you my toe. I won't make that part of the story. Don't panic.
You spent the evening with your foot in a bucket of water, didn't you?
Spent much of the day, my foot in a bucket. So yeah, just in case you were wondering. So I want you to look at that house over there. Actually, maybe to where the 4x4 is, just by that tree. You see it? It's a shame about this wire. That would look good. Something like that. Can you stick your head in this one? Just like this.
I can do that.
I'll take a photo of it. That'll look natural. Gosh. Quite clever. Yeah, let's vamos. Am I keeping you up?
Yeah. I am bored.
2, 1. Alright. Is that saying we can go through or not? Making friends?
They like me.
They do, don't they? They're very inquisitive. Hello. Quite relaxing music, I think. However, this is a photography channel and we're 5 minutes into a video and I've not shown you a single photo yet, so let me change that. Very quickly though, I do want to discuss a couple of things I like to think about when I'm trying to pull together these sets of 5 to 10 images to tell stories. I say 5 to 10 images, that's just a ballpark, it doesn't have to be between 5 and 10. As I'm sure you know. So the first thing I ever got told about this practice was that you should aim to use different focal lengths throughout the set in order to create some variation within the story. That is something that I actually don't agree with, as I've used this technique over time. To be honest, I think you could use one focal length quite comfortably. What I do think you need to do though is vary the distance from the subject. So I think it's important to have really close focus stuff, so flowers, things of that nature, but also things way in the distance in infinity like mountain ranges and stuff. And if you have a huge scale of distance between the subjects that you're using, then typically that tends to work quite well in tying bits and pieces of the story together. Not particularly sure why, I've just found in the past that when I've done that, stories tend to have a bit more variation and therefore a bit more interest. Thing number 2 to think about comes down to editing. And when you're editing, it's important that the aesthetic between all of the photos is kind of aligned. So if you use presets, for example, it's probably a good idea to use the same preset for each of the images. If you don't use presets, or you don't want to do it for this particular exercise, then try and at least keep tones and colours, things of that nature, quite similar. Because if all the images look quite different to each other in style, then a lot of the time, to some extent, it can kind of get in the way of the story or become a bit of a distraction. So try and keep the aesthetic between all the images roughly the same. And the third bit of advice, before I actually show you some of the photos that I got yesterday, relates to some of the photos that I got yesterday, and that is kill your darlings, which is a phrase that some of you, if you've done any writing in your time, might have come across. Basically, the premise is that regardless of how long you spend on a particular photo, regardless of how proud you are of it, if it doesn't tie into the story, if it doesn't aid the story, then get rid of it. It shouldn't be in the set. For example, yesterday, I got lots of photos of Emily and our walk and basically the location that we were in. But if I'd seen like Superman flying overhead and managed to get a photo of Superman, but nothing else regarding the location or anything to do with the story of yesterday, then it would be completely random to put that photo of Superman in the set. Again, a terrible example, but if you've been around this channel for a while, you'll know to expect those. So anyway, I'm going to go through some of the photos that I really like and will include in this set, and also some of the ones that I won't, and the reasons for that. Now, obviously, yesterday was a bit of a challenge in terms of photography because there wasn't really a cloud in the sky for much of the day, as I'm sure you saw from a lot of the GoPro footage. And in a place like the Peak District, there's no getting around the fact that that is not ideal conditions. The forecast had said that there was going to be high cloud, which would have been pretty good conditions, but nevertheless, I wasn't going to stop taking photos just because the conditions weren't exactly right. And for the demonstration of this, it doesn't matter anyway. So here is the first photo I took yesterday, and it's Emily and I eating flapjack in the background with my shoes in the foreground. Now, I quite like the concept of this image, primarily because it shows I've taken my shoes off, and I think that represents kind of like a comfort, a level of comfort with your surroundings, which sounds a bit airy-fairy and whimsical. But I do think, to some extent, that's what it demonstrates. What I don't like so much about this photo is the fact that you can see Emily and I are just scoffing our faces. We're not really focused on anything particular, and therefore it's a bit too much a photo of something rather than about something, in my opinion. That said, I had my camera on a timer and it was just taking photos every 2 seconds, and the next one was this. Now, this photo was only taken yesterday, and I can't remember what we were looking at, but we both got distracted by something, and I think this is a good example of a photo that makes you ask the question. Primarily, the question in this case, I imagine, will be, what are they looking at? And like I said, that's not a question that I have an answer to. 24 hours ago, that was. Anyway, so yeah, that I think can have a place in the set somewhere. I think it kind of sets the scene for the kind of day we had. Eating, messing around, taking our shoes off occasionally. Very good. Without going into too much detail, I did feel the need to let my toe breathe. Okay, so this is the next one I got. I'm not sure I'll include this in the final set because I think I got a slightly better, sort of similar thing later in the day when the light was a tiny bit better. But the premise of this is quite simple. It's Emily kind of looking over a gate at the vast scenery, the vista. And I think this kind of vista will always have a place in this kind of set when you're documenting like a walk or any kind of journey, because it shows a person, one of the people involved in the story, and also a big percentage of the land that the story is about, basically. And so I think ordinarily this kind of photo can work quite well as like a hero image for the set. What I mean by hero image is if I was going to sell this set, which I won't, to a magazine, but if I was going to do that, then a hero image is like the double page front cover of the campaign. So it's the first image that people see, it's the one that captures everyone's attention, and it's the one that sums up what the set and the story is really going to be about. That said, like I said, I might not include this one. I did some experimenting with a longer focal length to try and get Emily, but also the background in the frame. So I got a few different versions of this. I got some of Emily in focus and some of the background in focus. I think for the purpose of the set, I'd go for the one where the background is in focus, because as nice as Emily is, she's not the only focus of the story. And I think the one with the background in focus is kind of better suited to telling the story in this instance. This one I quite like. I think it's just a sort of semi-interesting composition. You've got the barn on the left, the wall through the middle, and then Emily walking on a track on the right-hand side. And I think also, despite the fact that this is midday sun, the image, to me at least, appears quite soft, and I quite like that. And I think it does a good job of showing that Emily's walking, but also the environment that she's walking in. And ultimately, what I'm looking for in these images is how much of the story they can tell by themselves, and the more of the story they can tell by themselves, the more of a place they deserve in the final set. And this definitely does a good job of that. In fact, this could be the hero image. This one, basically, there are a load of sheep underneath a tree, and I was hoping to edit it in a way that would show that. I don't really think it's quite worked, to be honest. Can't really see the sheep under the tree, so that probably won't make the cut. This one of Emily sniffing flowers, I think will. I think this looks really nice, and I think this does a good job of one of the images that's really close to the subject. And yeah, I definitely feel like you get a sense of story from looking at this, and I think it certainly aids the story. It certainly tells the viewer a bit more about our day than if this wasn't in the set, so that shall make the cut. Here's one of Emily walking through a field. Again, really not the right lighting conditions for this one, but it does give a sense of scale, and therefore I would consider putting that in. This one's interesting. I really like this photo, regardless of the fact that the light's not that good. I like that Emily is clearly focused on something, and therefore it's a good example again of an image about something, because the viewer is going to be asking questions such as, what is Emily looking at? Now, when I'm making these sets, quite often I like to have stories within stories. What I mean by that is that this image was followed up with a photo of me trying to get what Emily was looking at. So I did that in this image, but as you can see, it's not really obvious what Emily was looking at. She told me it was like a newt of some sort, but I didn't see it, and you certainly can't see it in the camera, so it kind of doesn't work. But what I like to do is tell stories within stories, and this is quite a good way of doing that. Basically showing a subject doing something in kind of like a grand scene or looking at something, and then showing another photo where you're able to show the viewer what they were looking at. I think that works quite well. Not in this instance, because I couldn't tell what she was looking at. Here's another close-up of some bluebells. I quite like this one. Emily walking in the background. That will probably make the cut. I took a photo of some ants, and it looked like there were loads of them on the floor, but I couldn't take a photo that that demonstrated just how many of them there were. Certainly not in time before they started biting me, so I got out of there quite sharpish. Oh, now this one. If you are making a set like this that is basically a story about location, one great way to humanise that story is to show somebody looking at directions or maps or signposts, or something that tells the viewer that this person is actively engaged in adventure and in the location. So having photos of your subject looking at maps or a phone or a sign, like I said, is a really good way of kind of putting that person properly into the story and not just having photos of that person in that place. So this, I think, does quite a good job of that. So that is certainly a contender to make the cut. Signage. This one, basically I find, I don't really know why it is, but every time I take photos of things like signs and I'm having to look up at them, whenever I see a photo where the camera is clearly pointed up, I can't help but notice that I feel very aware that it's a photo, but I'm not engrossed in the story. And that might just be me, it's a bit odd, but yeah, I'm never really sold on photos like this where you can tell that a camera is tilted up. Don't know why, might just be personal like I said. Emily blowing dandelions. this is a good example of a story within a story. I could have 3 images of her doing this. I'll probably pick 1 for the final set. Horses, so again, this is Emily looking at directions, but with the horses in the background, which I think is quite a nice touch. I think that will make the set. That formed quite a funny part of our day. Some sheep, again, potential hero images, but I didn't manage to get a photo of a sheep that wasn't just giving me its backside. Another one of Emily by the gate. I think this is the one that I'd use for the final set because I think it's just a little bit more interesting than the one I showed you before. And like I said, it's a bit better in terms of light because it's slightly later in the day. Here's one I tried with the drone. You might have seen photos of this style before. Basically, it relies on a really strong sun, really harsh light, and the subject becomes the shadows rather than the people because the camera's just pointed right down at us. I don't think it worked that well in this instance because there's too much detail in the ground. I think it works really well on like sand or anywhere where there's just really low contrast. But in this image, I don't think it works that well because, like I say, all the heather is a bit ugly this time of year and it just distracts from the shadows of us. Another one I tried with the drone would probably be great in August, but like I said, the heather just looks pretty ugly this time of year, so that one probably won't make the cut either. And then a few more to finish. This is Emily crossing the river, so I think this does a pretty good job of showing the environment, but also Emily in that environment, so I think this goes a good way to telling a bit of story. And then a close-up of the feet. So her choice in footwear is obviously quite important for the story. That gives you a real sense of what we've been doing. We've been hiking in the hills. So I just like the water and the rock and the harsh sunlight on her feet. And I think those two things do a really good job of tying everything together quite well as well. So that in a nutshell is some of the photos I took, some of the photos I like, and you can see the final set down below in the description. I've uploaded the final set onto my website as a standalone page. So hopefully that's interesting. Like I say, I don't think that set is going to break any records or be seen in any magazines, but then again, I'm quite happy with it for just a little walk in the countryside on a harsh light day. I don't think it's too bad. Oh, in a train track. I quite like that photo as well. That was on the way back to the car. That's quite nice. Maybe that'll make the cut. Anyway, enough about me and my photos and my day yesterday. Let's talk about some of your photos. So a couple of weeks ago, as I mentioned at the start of this video, I kicked off a competition, an editing competition with Luminar, hashtag JPLuminar if you want to check it out. And so the premise was to show you images before you've edited them in Luminar and then to show the after as well. And I was going to pick 5 winners to give a Luminar license to. And I'm going to do that right now. So the 5 winners are, in no particular order. Okay, so first up is this one, which I love anyway. I think the original image is phenomenal, really my kind of image, and exactly the sort of photo that I think is about something rather than of something. I certainly get lots of questions come to mind when I look at it, and I also think this is a great example of certainly what I'm going to use Luminar for, which is to make fairly subtle changes. I mean, Luminar is a platform that you can make incredible changes to, as I'll show you with some of the other ones, but this one is just a really subtle tweak to the sky, which I think well, actually, it makes all the difference, despite the fact that, as I say, I really liked the first image too. So yeah, there's a winner. Okay, next up, this one. So here's the original and here's the after. Pretty cool. I mean, that certainly gives me more questions about the image, so that's deserving of a license. Next up, this image caught my eye because I was at this location in the Dolomites in Italy last year, about 6 months ago, and this is the after. So a really clever use of an underexposed image and then changing the sky to get that. Looks pretty cool to me. I dig that. You deserve a license. This one I really like too. I mean, I'm largely just a big fan of horses, but that's also a really cool implementation of a sky replacement. And finally, if there's any image I've ever seen which would work perfectly in a lightning storm, well, it's this one. That's a good bit of fun, and I actually think it works really well for the image. So yeah, big fan of that. So yeah, they are the 5 winners. Thank you very much to everybody who entered. The winners I'll be contacting probably in the next couple of days on Instagram DM. But thank you to everyone for entering. If you're not a winner but you'd really like to try Luminar out, you can do so with a free trial, link in the description. And if you've had the free trial, you really like it, you can get $10 off. I think $10 off. Again, link in the description. But yeah, cheers everyone. Big fan of your work and of Luminar, so check it out if you're interested in any way. And I'll see you next time, when hopefully there'll be a bit more cloud maybe for some good photography. Or maybe I'll just go at a better time of day. Like I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of sunset or sunrise, but when there's no clouds, then it does have its advantages. Anyway, see you soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers.